Cut off by Cook. Clark trying to wiggle free. Step back is good. Tough bucket. Clark. Deep three is good. 28 points.
I did. I rely on AB in a lot of situations. So it's about recalibrating and get my mind back right. But I do think this Seattle team is a really great team. You can't take them for granted. I was happy that we were resilient down the stretch because we're playing at home, them at home, and I know how good they were shooting the ball. So resiliency is big for us, but it's confidence too.
The Indiana Fever have become the first team in WNBA history to score at least 100 points in 4 consecutive games. Over a 12-day stretch, Indiana put up 110 points, then 108, then a franchise record 123, then 105. By the end of that run, the Fever had also reached 12 100-point games for the season, a new WNBA single-season record. Each game in the streak carried its own character. The first was built around a career night from Caitlin Clark. The second turned on a scoring surge from Kelsey Mitchell. The third was a rout from the opening minutes. The fourth came on the road after Aaliyah Boston left with an injury and still cleared 100 points. Taken together, the 4 games show a team that can lean on different players depending on the night, rather than one built around a single scoring option. The streak began on July 17 against the Seattle Storm, a game Indiana won 110-107. Caitlin Clark scored a career-high 45 points and added 10 assists, becoming the first player in WNBA history to record a 40-point 10-assist game. She did it efficiently, making 11 of 18 shots, including 6 of 10 from three-point range, while also recording 4 steals and 2 blocks. She also became the fastest player in league history to reach 200 made three-pointers, doing it in 74 games, breaking the previous record of 81 held by Katie Smith. Kelsey Mitchell scored 30 points, and Monique Billings added 16. Clark and Mitchell alone accounted for 75 of Indiana's points. Indiana controlled the game early, building a first-quarter lead behind a run that Clark capped with a three-pointer. Seattle came back late, cutting the margin before Clark closed it out herself. She blocked a Seattle transition attempt, hit a go-ahead 3 from the left wing, and made 4 straight free throws in the final seconds to seal the win. Seattle's Dominique Malonga finished with 28 points and 14 rebounds in the loss, and the Storm shot 56.6% from the field but could not get enough stops down the stretch. Afterward, Fever coach Stephanie White described the performance simply, "It's incredible. It's special. She does things that we haven't seen." The second game came the following night, July 18, against the New York Liberty. Indiana won 108-88, but the game did not start that way. New York opened hot from three-point range and built an early lead. Indiana answered with a run late in the second quarter that cut the deficit to 4 points by halftime. Early in the third quarter, Clark converted a three-point play that gave the Fever their first lead of the game. From there, Indiana took over, outscoring New York 28-12 in the third quarter as the Liberty struggled with turnovers. Kelsey Mitchell led all scorers with 33 points on 10 of 14 shooting, marking her 4th 30-point game of the season and her second in as many nights. Clark added 17 points, and the Fever's bench provided a significant scoring boost as well. New York's Brianna Stewart led the Liberty with 26 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks. The 108 points marked Indiana's 10th 100-point game of the season, a franchise record at the time and one shy of the WNBA's single-season mark, which had been set by the 2023 Las Vegas Aces. The third game, played July 22 against the Connecticut Sun, was the most lopsided of the 4. Indiana won 123-88, setting a new franchise record for points in a game. The Fever also set a franchise record for points in a half, leading 70-46 at the break, a total that ranked among the highest halftime outputs in league history. Clark opened the game 5 for 5 from three-point range and finished with 27 points and 11 assists. Mitchell scored 23, and Aaliyah Boston added 22, giving Indiana 3 players with at least 20 points. The Fever shot 61.6% from the field for the game and recorded 29 assists on their made baskets, a number that reflects how much of the scoring came through ball movement rather than isolation play. That game also carried an edge. In the third quarter, Clark was assessed her 7th technical foul of the season during an exchange with Connecticut's Sanaya Rivers, putting her 1 technical away from an automatic 1-game suspension under WNBA rules. It was a reminder that Indiana's offensive surge was unfolding alongside a disciplinary situation the team would need to manage. By the end of that game, Indiana had also tied the WNBA's single-season record for 100-point games, with 11. The fourth game, played July 28 at Seattle, closed out the streak and set the record outright. Indiana won 105-95, its 12th 100-point game of the season and its 4th straight, marking the longest such streak in WNBA history. Clark led Indiana with 32 points and 7 assists. Mitchell scored 28, and Monique Billings recorded a double-double. Aaliyah Boston had 11 points before leaving the game in the second quarter with a right leg injury. Kelsey Mitchell said afterward that the team took a mental hit a little bit when Boston went down, but Indiana still built a 20-point first-half lead and held on as Seattle cut the margin to 4 points heading into the fourth quarter before the Fever pulled away again. Across the 4 games, Indiana scored 446 points, an average of 111.5 per game. The Fever shot 54.3% from the field and 49.5% from three-point range over that stretch, and made 86.5% their free throws. Clark scored 121 points across the 4 games and added 35 assists, shooting 55.9% from the field and 50% from 3. Mitchell scored 114 points on similarly efficient shooting and extended her streak of 20-point games. Together, Clark and Mitchell accounted for more than half of Indiana's scoring during the run, though the supporting cast, particularly Boston, Billings, and the bench, played a consistent role in extending leads and finishing games. The record itself has a clear historical marker. The Las Vegas Aces previously held the mark for the longest streak of 100-point games, reaching 3 in a row during the 2022 season. Indiana's 4 straight moved past that total, and league and team materials have credited the Fever with the new record following the July 28 win in Seattle. The consecutive game streak did not happen in isolation. Indiana entered the stretch already scoring at a historic pace for the season, and by the time the streak ended, the Fever had set the WNBA's single-season record for 100-point games as well, reaching 12. There are context points worth including alongside the record. New York was missing key rotation players in the second game. Connecticut was shorthanded in the third. Seattle had lost several games in a row heading into the fourth matchup. Those absences likely made some of the scoring easier to generate, but they do not fully explain results like Seattle's own 107 points in the series opener, or New York's competitive first half before Indiana's third quarter surge. The Fever were scoring at a high rate against opponents that were still, in most cases, generating offense of their own. What the 4 games show collectively is a team with more than one way to win. When Clark operates as the offense's primary threat, defenses have to account for her shooting range and her ability to create for teammates. When Mitchell is attacking gaps and scoring in bursts, defenses cannot commit fully to Clark. When Boston catches the ball in the middle of the floor, she can score or find open shooters. And when Indiana's role players convert the next available shot, defenses run out of answers. That reading follows from the scoring distribution and assist totals across the 4 games, though it remains an interpretation of the box scores rather than a stated team strategy. For a franchise that has spent recent seasons searching for a stable offensive identity, this stretch offers evidence rather than promise. Indiana scored at an elite rate against 4 different opponents in 4 different circumstances, including 1 game played without its starting center for most of the second half. The team's own materials and outside reporting have both framed the streak as a new benchmark for the WNBA, and the underlying numbers, from shooting percentages to assist totals to the pace of scoring, support that framing. Whether the Fever can sustain this level over a full season remains an open question, but over these 12 days, they set the standard other teams will now be measured against. The record arrived at a specific point in Indiana's season. The win in Seattle improved the Fever to 18 wins and 10 losses, and it came immediately after the All-Star break, meaning Indiana opened the second half of the schedule by extending, rather than starting, its hot stretch. The 4 100-point games were not an isolated flourish before a letdown. They bracketed the league's midseason pause, 3 coming before All-Star weekend and the 4th coming right after it, which suggests the offensive rhythm Indiana built was not dependent on any single week of favorable matchups. Boston's exit in the 4th game remains the one unresolved thread from the streak. She left with a right leg injury in the second quarter against Seattle, and post-game comments from Mitchell described the moment as a mental setback for the team as much as a physical one. Indiana still finished the game at full offensive strength without her, which speaks to the depth the roster has built around Clark and Mitchell, but the severity of Boston's injury was not immediately clear afterward, and her availability going forward is a separate storyline from the record itself. A team built around 3 All-Stars is only as flexible as its ability to survive one of them being unavailable, and this stretch offered a preview of that scenario in real time. Clark's technical foul situation also deserves its own mention outside the box scores. The 7th technical, assessed during the Connecticut game, placed her 1 technical away from an automatic 1-game suspension under WNBA rules. That number did not change during the Seattle game, but it remains attached to every game Indiana plays from this point forward. A team riding a scoring record now also has to manage the possibility of losing its most productive scorer for a game due to accumulated technicals, which adds a layer of roster planning that a normal hot streak would not require. Stephanie White has not publicly addressed how the coaching staff plans to manage Clark's on-court conduct going forward, but the number is now a fixed part of the season's context. The 4 games also reshaped how Indiana's rotation looks in practice. Monique Billings played a larger role across the streak than she had earlier in the season, contributing double-digit scoring in more than one of the 4 games and a double-double in the finale. Sophie Cunningham and Tyasha Harris both factored into the bench scoring during the stretch, giving White additional options when the starting lineup needed rest or matchup adjustments. That kind of rotation depth matters most in exactly the situation Indiana faced in the 4th game, when a starter goes down and the team needs scoring from somewhere else on the roster without a drop in offensive rhythm. Looking at the schedule ahead, Indiana will be measured by whether this level of offense holds against tougher defensive opponents than the 4 teams it faced during the streak. Seattle had lost multiple games in a row heading into the finale, Connecticut was without 2 regular contributors, and New York was already dealing with its own losing stretch when Indiana beat them. None of that erases what Indiana did on the floor, but it does mean the next real test of this offense will come against a team that is healthy, in form, and prepared for what Indiana has been doing for the past 2 weeks. The record is now official. What happens next is the part of the story that has not been written yet.